Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for part 2 of our Bluebeam webinar presented by our friends at Digital Drafting Systems. We have Sandra Beamar from the team here with us today. So thank you, Sandra, for lending us your team, for lending us our fantastic instructor, Mr. Ari Retman, who is with us today. So, we went through phase 1 where you are all of you that are out there are Padawans, and now we're moving you closer to the Jedi stage. All right. So, now we get the little thing moving around shooting laser beams at you as you return fire. I also want to thank the members of our education committee for helping guide what we do when it comes to our educational offerings for you and our members. I want to thank our president, Mr. Brian Wesner, who also happens to have several members of his team joining us today. So I want to say welcome to those folks from Duffy Southeast who are substituting their Wednesday educational session for today with Ari. So thank you all for joining us. That being said, most all of us were here for session number 1, so there's not much more for me to say. I'm going to hand things off to Ari so we can get going. Ari, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlos, as usual. I really appreciate it. Well, hello, everybody. It's nice to see you all. My name is Ari, and I'm a Bluebeam certified instructor, and I'm with Digital Drafting Systems, just like Carlos said. And before we begin, just to let you guys know, we do have a chat feature in Windows. I mean, in Zoom. There is also one in Windows. But in Zoom, there's a little chat button that you can see, and you can use that to ask me any questions you want. And near the end of the presentation, I'll be answering all the questions that I can. So you guys can definitely start writing down some questions and thinking about what kinds of things you'd like to see, or if it's possible to do some things in Bluebeam Review. So today is week 2, like Carlos said. We're going to be specializing in quantity takeoffs. So we're going to do a lot of cost analysis, things like that. So there's a lot of benefits of using Review for contractors, of course, like I mentioned last week. But in terms of quantity takeoffs and cost analysis, Review allows you to, first of all, set your scale properly. And you can basically change the precision of that scale, which includes fractions and decimal places. And you can have very nice, accurate calibrations, and these calibrations can help you prove your scale. So I'll show you guys how to do that. That'll be one of the first things we do. Then, of course, we'll perform a quantity takeoff. And the good news is that there isn't a lot of work to it, because all you have to do is set up a few things. And whenever you make markups, they're automatically put into our markups list and quantified. So there's a few settings that I'll show you to make sure that you get the best out of that. Then we'll create some cost analysis for areas, lengths, and wall areas, which are very common. I've also been working with a client of ours that's also a contractor, and he wanted to know how many sheets he would need to place on a wall. He doesn't really need the cost, he needs the amount of sheets. And so because he knows the cost per sheet, we did the reverse calculation, and I'll show you guys how to do that too. We're not just going to do multiplication today. We're also going to look at hyperlink summary reports, so we can take all of our markups and all of our quantities and use them either as a table of contents, or we can just have them as a regular report. I'll show you both ways. We can also link to Excel, of course. And we're going to manage our images with captures. I know that as contractors, you need to take images on the site and sometimes link them to a markup. And it would be nice if somebody clicked on a markup and saw that there was an image associated with it. So I'll show you guys how to do that today. So here's our overview, basically everything I just talked about, we're going to be doing it, and I'll use this as a little guide today. So let's get started by doing what we should do if we need to measure on our sheet. What are the first steps to measuring on a sheet in Bluebeam Review? So here I am, I have Review open once again, and let's do some calibrations. Let's pretend that I don't know the scale of my sheet, but I do know the scale. It's right down here on the bottom right. I see it in my navigation bar, and because I turned on my status bar, it's also down here. Just a little reminder from last week, you'll want to turn on your status bar if you haven't done so already. It's found under the Tools dropdown and Toolbars. It's a really, really nice bar with all these toggles that I talked about last week. So let's calibrate our page. So we can do this in a couple of ways. I'm going to go to my measurements panel on the right side. It's this little ruler icon right here. And I can use Calibrate here, or I can just simply use these preset or custom scales, and I can click on this drop down here. So if I already know my scale, I don't want to waste time calibrating, and I can just click on Preset. click on the drop-down and choose from many different typical scales. We have architectural, engineering, and surveyor scales here. So hopefully either of those scales will help you all as contractors. Now, another thing we could do is go to the tools drop-down and measure. And we don't have calibrate here. We used to have it, and on older versions of review, you'll see it here. Instead, we have set scale. So let's actually just use calibrate from the measuring panel this time, because that's usually what the first step is. So in order to calibrate, we just need one dimension. Hopefully it's a straight line. That makes it a lot easier. So we're going to select 2 points of a known one. I like to use these grid lines right here, grid lines 4 and 5, and we have this 30-foot dimension right here. So I'm going to zoom in a lot to make sure that I get the intersection here. So as soon as my little square turns blue, I've now snapped to the intersection, and I taught you guys a little bit about that last week. And now I'm going to zoom in here and get this intersection. And now the calibrate dialog pops up. And we can see some things here that aren't really clear. So I'll explain everything, and we'll start with this box right here that's highlighted in blue, and our text is highlighted in blue and selected. This box is actually asking us what is supposed to be the dimension right there. So the dimension that we just measured was 30 feet. And therefore, the number on the right side automatically populated itself before we even typed in this box. And so the number on the left side here is basically calculated by review, and it's telling us that 3.75 inches equals 30 feet. Now, the calibration is a little bit off by about 1/1000th of a decimal place. That's a bit of an issue, but not a big deal, because we don't really need to use the calibration as our scale. We can use our calibration to find our scale. So we know that 3.75 equals 30 feet. Now, we want it to equal 1 foot, so all we have to do is 30 feet divided by itself equals 1 foot. And so 3.75 divided by 30 feet equals 0.125, which is 1/8. And therefore, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot is the scale for this drawing. So that's how you can use a calibration to test scales and to confirm them. And if you don't have a scale in the drawing, you can just figure it out as long as there's one dimension. All right, great. So I'm just going to set that preset here. If I didn't have my scale in this list, if I had a very odd scale that isn't typical, I can go to custom, and I can just start typing in anything I want. So I can make anything on the left equal anything on the right side. Then we have precision down here. And this is the precision that I was talking about earlier. This precision allows you to control how many fractions and decimal places you'll see when you create measurements. For example, I have a few measurements. Let me make one from scratch so that you guys can see an irregular one, because this 30-foot one won't really help us. So I'm just going to make a random one at a random angle. And so this one is showing us that it's out of 30 seconds. Its fraction is out of 32 inches, or a 32nd of an inch, excuse me. And if we go to our measuring panel, we can also see precision is here. So we don't have to calibrate to change our precision. We can change it whenever we want to. And this is a global precision. So this is changing on the entire document. So I can click on this. I can go to 1/4, for example. And now it's rounding the measurement to the nearest place. Because it seems like 1/2 was pretty correct, it doesn't go to any fourth. Now, if I go to 1/8, nothing really changes. 1/16, now we're getting a little bit more accurate. Now we know that it's not exactly a 1/2 inch, it's a little bit over. So I recommend using the higher precisions, or in this case, you could say the lower fraction. That way you get the most accurate measurements. So 32 of an inch is really telling us here that it is not quite 1/2 inch, but it's close. So be careful when you're using lower precisions. So for example, if I go to a 1/2 inch, then it's showing us the same information as a 1/4 of an inch. So it's kind of rounding to the nearest whole fraction, or the nearest fraction according to the precision. So not quite the most accurate thing, but when you get to the 32 of an inch, it's very accurate. So this also applies to decimal places. If there are areas here that have decimal places, for example, then if I change the precision, it's just like changing the fraction. So 1/4 of an inch is essentially 2 decimal places, 1/2 inch is 1 decimal place, et cetera, et cetera. So very simple stuff. All right, great. So that's basically how we calibrate and how we set our scale. Now let's go back to our presentation, make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see, where is my presentation? Oh, let me click on it like this. There we are. Okay, so let's measure first. So I already made a length tool. Let's make another measuring tool, and I'll show you a couple ways that you can use them. The length tool is very simple. You just click and click and you're done. So I'm just going to make a length measurement right here in between grid lines 4 and 5. And so now we can confirm that the dimension here is 30 feet. So this is great. So Now what we can do is we can change how this length dimension looks. And this goes back into properties and how we can modify markups. But with the length tool, there's a few nuances. What we can do first of all is change how our arrows look. So I don't really like these filled in ones. I want to save some ink if I have to print this with a printer. So now I'm just going to use these open arrows right here. Then I'm not used to seeing text in between the lines. Usually the text is above the line. So I'm going to hold the shift key and then click on the text and then hold it and then drag it up like this. If I didn't hold shift, I would move the entire dimension just like that. So the shift key is very important. Now we have another oddity here, this leader line. This is also very atypical on most construction documents that I've seen. So I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to go to this option in properties here that's called show caption leader line and uncheck it. And now it's gone. So now my length measurement looks much, much more standard, and I can save this to my tool chest and use it over and over again. Measurements and markups are all considered kind of the same thing in a way. So you can add them to your tool chest whenever you want to. Your tool chest can have markups, measurements, images, and snapshots, along with group annotations, which are just combinations of markups into one. So I could just right click, add to tool chest, and there it is. We have a small issue whenever we add these kinds of measurements to our tool chest. If I was just to bring it out in carbon copy mode or drawing mode, like I talked about last week, and this is an exact copy of how I saved it, it's not quite an exact copy. For some reason, the show caption leader line is checked off again. So sadly, that happens, and there's no real workaround around it. I've already submitted a feature request to Bluebeam to hopefully fix that. And the second issue is, if I double click on this markup and turn it into properties mode, now when I make a new measurement, it puts the text in between the lines. So there isn't really much we can do about it, but luckily it does save our arrow properties. So it's another small issue that we're going to work with Bluebeam to see if they can fix that soon. Anyway, so that's how we can make a length measurement. The area one is a little bit different. It's also a very common one. If I didn't want to make a rectangular area, I'm not going to hold down the left mouse button. So I'm just going to click and let go, and I can make an area of any shape I want. And when it comes to dealing with shapes in review, whether it's making an area measurement, a polygon, measurements and markups are included. Anytime you're using a shape, you want to press the Enter key when you're done drawing it. And it automatically connects any shape that's a closed object, such as polygons or area tools. So if you're dealing with text, on the other hand, then just press the Escape key when you're done typing text. So that's a big thing that you guys can take away from this. Text means escape, and shapes, you need to press Enter. Okay, so that's basically some measurements in a nutshell. Just to show you guys, if I click and hold the left mouse button, I can make a nice rectangular area. If I hold the Shift key, I can make a square area. So if you want to make perfect squares, just hold the Shift key. Shift kind of activates ortho when it comes to drawing straight lines, and it activates drawing perfect circles and perfect squares for the ellipse and the polygon tool. And I think I covered that last week. So, all right, the other measurements are pretty self-explanatory, but I want to show you guys something really cool about areas in particular. This is one of the measurements that you can do so much with, because you don't just have to show the area here. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to properties right here. And then I'm going to scroll down where show caption was that we saw earlier. And this time I'm going to click on edit right here. I don't just have to show the area of this measurement. I can show the length, but in this case, the length is very misleading. It is not the actual long ways horizontal length of this rectangle. It actually is the perimeter. So in this program, the length is considered the perimeter because it's calculating the total length of all the sides. So there's justifications for using slightly different terminology in the program. So as long as you understand it, you can show all the information you need. We can, of course, show areas, volumes, which will not be visible unless we have a depth associated with them. To assign a depth to an area, all you have to do is go to the measurements panel, and you'll see depth here as long as the area is selected. So if I don't have a markup selected, then I just see some very basic information under measurement properties. But as soon as I click on a markup, now it says area measurement properties, and I have a lot of information that I can toggle here. I could even do slopes and pitches for roofs, for example. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it better. And there's even a drop down here. So I can use pitch, degree, or grade, many different options here. So for depth, I'm just going to pretend that this concrete is, let's say it's about 6 inches thick. So I'm going to change my units here from feet to inches. And now we're at 6 inches. So now that I've set a depth and my volume is not 0, it shows the volume on the sheet right here. So you just need to make sure that if you toggle that caption on, you need to set a depth to it. So let's go back to our properties, click on edit, and I'm going to turn on depth as well. Now we know how thick this concrete block is, for example. And we can also do wall area as well. It automatically calculates the depth, which in this program is considered the height, and the length. So it really does wall areas very well. Now for area, it calculates the wall areas for all 4 sides at the same time. So that's also quite convenient. Now in this list here for captions, we do see width and height. Width and height are a little bit different in the program, just like how volume or just like how length and depth are different. The width is actually the long ways length. So if I turn that on, we'll just know the length there. And the height is actually the vertical length or width, you could say. So width is length, height is length. There's a bit of a mix up there, but they're doing that because in this program, the way that we quantify things is a little bit different, but you can get the same information and then you can translate it that way. So now you know. So look at all this information we can see just in this one area, and it's all because we turned on our captions and we assigned a depth, and that depth gave us the volume, the wall area, and of course we showed the depth here. So the area tool is really, really versatile, and I use it a lot whenever I'm trying to calculate certain measurements. I don't even need to show areas. I can just turn area off if I'm just trying to use it as a placeholder and then just to show maybe just the perimeter or just the volume of something, for example. We do have dedicated tools for most other measurements. Of course, we have volume in the list right here. The perimeter can be quite useful. The perimeter and polylength are almost identical to each other, except that with the polylength tool, let me make one and show you guys. I believe this is the case. Let me just confirm my assumption. Yes, the polylength can include the rise and drop if you've assigned it in your measuring area. So if you have a rise and drop, you can use polylength to calculate slopes. So that's quite useful. The perimeter tool does not do that. And the perimeter tool is a closed loop tool. So if I go to perimeter here and I create it, whoops, let me make another one. Oh, it's because, so the perimeter by default, it wanted me to make a rectangle for some reason. Anyway, so when I use the perimeter tool and then I press enter, it basically doesn't need to close itself off, but it could if I wanted to. And it usually shows just the entire perimeter instead of individual segments. If I want to turn that on, I can select it, and in properties, I can click on show segment values, and now I can see all my individual lengths. So that's basically the small nuances and differences between the perimeter and the polylength tool. Moving on, we have a few other tools here, nothing too crazy to worry about. The count tool, we could use it manually here, but there's a better way to use it with visual search. I think I demonstrated last week how visual search works. And when you're done with visual search, you can use that check options button and apply a count automatically to everything that you searched for. So you guys can look at that video and you'll see that count is available as an option. It's close to where hyperlink and highlight are. So I think in a more excited way, I think dynamic fill is going to be a really special option that you all want to see. So let's do dynamic fill right now. Dynamic fill is a special tool. It kind of uses a little bit of magic when it comes to how it can give you information on certain areas that have curves on their edges. So a good example of that is this office right here. So let's see if I can use dynamic fill to get this area correct. So it's about 193. So let's keep that in mind. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to make a fill. But if I just make a fill, I'm going to encounter some issues. But let's see what happens. So I just click on the fill tool up here, and then I'm just going to click and hold in the middle of whatever I'm trying to fill inside. Now the fill is happening, and it automatically stops at vector lines. So because this drawing came from CAD or BIM, basically these lines are smart vector data. I can tell because they keep refreshing themselves as I zoom in on the objects. So this was a pretty good fill, but the problem is this door. And if I try to fill past the door, well, then I'm just going to fill the entire rest of the building. So I'm going to click on the garbage can icon and clear all. I could just clear the fill, or I can clear boundaries individually. That way, if I'm dealing with a really massive area that's very detailed, and if I make one mistake, I don't have to worry about having to fix everything or having to undo everything and redo it again. So in this case, I'm just going to use a boundary first. So I'll click on boundary. And the way that we use boundaries is if I just started on the outer edge here and I drew up to here, I might miss these little gaps here, and Review might try to draw extra lines and grips here when we actually create a measurement. So instead, I'm going to draw inside of the wall because I'm showing Review that these lines here are kind of sort of part of the boundary. So I'm just going to click there. A little bit of gaps in between the boundary line and here are fine. And this boundary is not drawn based on its center. The actual thickness of this circle and the edges of the circle are the boundaries. So I'm just going to click again here and show you guys. By the way, I held shift to draw that straight line down. So you guys need to make sure to hold shift if you're trying to draw straight. Now I'm just going to press enter. And there's my boundary. So the boundary here, the thickness is actually the stopping point. So the fill is going to stop right at the edge of this boundary. And like I said, these gaps here aren't a big deal. Usually Review will either ignore them. And if they are, if it places extra grips there, I can show you how to delete them very quickly. So let's go to our fill tool. And I think now we're ready to go. All I need to do now is make sure that I move my circle inside of the door and the 206 circle. So let's now click and hold, and I'll just drag inside of here quickly, go back to the center, and then let go. Now, everything here looks pretty good. I don't see any major issues except on the bottom left. And this happens sometimes, and this is why I use this office as an example. Because there's something going on with these lines here. There might be a mistake in CAD. There might be a small gap here. So for some reason, Review just didn't really recognize these lines right here. And it probably started somewhere around there. And that's okay, because even if there's mistakes like that, we don't have to worry about trying to undo them. We can just make our measurement and then we can fix it afterwards, and it won't take too long. Next, we can use the create options here. Now, before I do that, I just realized that I haven't shown you guys proper settings for this tool. So this is the way that we can activate temporary settings for this tool. If I click on the settings button right here, I can change some settings here. Now, it says 100% for the boundary size, but actually, if I move the slider, it reverts back to its actual number, which is 25%. It's a visual bug, and I'm hoping that they fix that in the next patch. Anyway, so we want to set our boundary size as small as possible to 25%, fill size to 50, and fill speed to 30. And our edge sensitivity is always set to high, because if it's set to low, it usually just passes right through lines. Now, this is where you can temporarily change your settings very quickly if you need to. The better way to do this, if you want to have your settings permanently there every single time you use dynamic fill, is you go to the Review dropdown and you click on Preferences. And then under Tools and Measure, these are the settings for dynamic fill. I may have gone over them last week. I may have skipped over them just because it's not part of our introduction from last week, but I'll just show them on the screen here so you guys can get the right settings. You'll want to increase your DPI, your dots per inch, to 400 instead of 300, so you get more accurate fills as well. And you could momentarily hide markups if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. It is useful if you're trying to fill in an area that is very busy with many markups, but I like to see which markups I'm dealing with, and they usually don't get in the way. All right, so now that our settings are good to go, let's now execute our fill. We can now choose between 6 different kinds of measuring tools. I can immediately create spaces. I can create polygons. I've got the area tool here, and I have a drop down next to all of these that allows me to choose between tools that are already in my tool chest. So I have an area that I use for concrete. I've set a specific subject for it, and I have certain information associated with it. So I could use that one if I wanted to. I think in this case, for visibility purposes, I'm just going to use the default area. And we could apply more than one of these at once. So I could do an area, a volume. I could do all of them if I wanted to. But the problem with doing that is that it's going to be very busy, and it's literally going to make 6 or however many that I select measurements all at once. So instead, I'm just going to do area. And now I'm ready, so I'm going to click apply. Here is my area. Looks like it was pretty close, 193. We do have the issue down here in the bottom left, so let's fix that now. So how do we fix this? Because we have a lot of grips here that we don't need, and we need to move a few of these. All I need to do is hold the shift key. When I do, and I mouse over a line, I'm going to see a plus sign if I'm just over any random part of the line. And if I mouse over a grip, I see a minus sign on the bottom right of my cursor. So I'm going to get rid of these 2 grips right here. And I'm going to move this grip right to the center, right around there. Now, these grips are also a bit of a mistake, so I can't really see where I'm going to snap to. So I'll do a small little trick. I'll move them out of my way. Now that I can see where I want to snap to, I can move them back in. So I'll move one of them right around here, and I'll move this one right around there. It isn't a perfect arc, and I could spend more time placing more grips and deleting some other grips, but this is close enough, so we can use that. Now we have a few other things we need to check just to make sure. We'll start from the upper left here. And it looks like this time, because sometimes it doesn't do this time it did not detect the gap in between the boundary and the lines, and it just knew to use those lines. So that's why I drew inside of the wall, and there's no extra grips here. So that was really, really clean and nice. And that saved me a lot of time. This corner up here is looking good. Down here, we have some issues. We don't need that one. So I'm holding Shift and clicking on these to get rid of them. Very, very quick and easy to do. And one more that we don't need is that one. Perfect. Now our concrete area is pretty close to the other area that we had. It's about 1/10 off, and that's okay. We could add more grips in the corner here and make it even more accurate, but I think this is close enough for some estimating purposes. So then what I could do is, just like I did with the length tools, I can hold the Shift key and then click on the text and drag it up. That way I can see the label for the office and the concrete area label as well. So that's it. That's how we can use dynamic fill to get all the information we need, and we don't have to worry about making a rectangular area and then modifying it and snapping points and adding grips. It just basically makes them for us, and then we can clean it up afterwards. So dynamic fill can save us a lot of time if we know how to use it. All right, so that was dynamic fill and measuring. Let's get into some cost analysis and quantity takeoffs, because that's why we're here. So I think now that we know the basics, it's time to have some fun. So let's actually get that area back. I want to show you guys that if I open up my markups list, it's the 3 dots and 3 lines button right here. I can then click on an area, and it automatically highlights it in the list and takes us to it. So here is our area that I just created. And because I've already set some predefined settings for it, it automatically gives me a cost analysis for concrete. So the material of concrete, if I make the column a little bit bigger, it shows us this number 3 right here. That means that I've said that concrete costs 3 whatever currency per 1 unit. So in more layman's terms, it's $3 per square foot of concrete, or per volume of concrete, because concrete has a thickness. So if I'm just going to do cost analysis for the area of concrete, that's great. I could do that. And I basically, because it's $3 and this concrete area is 193 square feet, the math gives us about $579. So that was automatically done. And I'll show you how I got that so easy. Now, this concrete doesn't have a depth yet. So if I give it a depth right now, we're going to see that cost analysis for volume will be able to populate itself. So let's say that it was 6 inches, like I said earlier. So we'll change that to inches. And let's click into another area. Let's see. Yep, there it is. So $289 to fill in this concrete area. Good. So now we know how that works. And I have different kinds of cost analysis here. I've got wall area here that also populated itself because I have a depth. So that's great. And wall area is a nice variable. We don't have to worry about actually manually typing in height times length. All we have to do, or depth times length in this program, we actually can just use the variable wall area that automatically calculates that for us. That already saves us some time too. And you can see that I have 2 kinds of material columns. I have one here, and I have this one for civil engineering. I was working on this one with another client, and this shows you that you can assign more than one material to a markup. So all you need is another column, and therefore you can just choose different materials on that column. So let me show you how I made all of my cost analysis columns now that you can see them in action. So I went to the markups list dropdown, moused over columns, and I clicked on manage columns right here. Then this is my display order for the columns that I have turned on in the program. And if I go to custom columns up here, these are all columns that I've created. So I'll start with this material column right here, and we'll click on modify. Here we can see that I have a lot of different materials. Excuse me. And I have 2 different subjects that I'm using, interior and exterior. These subjects allow me to choose which materials can be assigned to what markup. So where can I assign a subject? Well, if I have a markup selected and I go to properties, subject is at the top right here. So here, my concrete areas, because I've saved them as my default, I just right clicked and I set as default, then they're automatically going to be created with the subject of exterior. And I also gave them a label. All measurements can have labels. Markups do not have labels. So I've labeled this as concrete area, and I'm showing that label in my captions down here. So label is turned on. So that's great. So now I can identify this very easily. I don't have to do any guesswork. So let's go back to our custom columns area. Now that you know that where the subject is the driving force for everything. And I learned something from my contractor client that I was training. If you don't have a subject assigned to a material, you can merely assign that material to any markup you want. You can just go into your properties area and choose that material. So you don't need subjects, but if you want to organize yourself and the subject is useful in the markups list to be organizing what you're dealing with, then I would recommend using a subject if you want to be a bit more accurate. So let's look at concrete that I showed you guys just earlier. If I click on that, click on modify, then here we are. And we have the subject right here. If I left this blank, like I said earlier, that's fine. That means I could apply it to any markup I wanted to, not just the ones with the exterior subject. And here's why I assign my numeric value. So 3 units or 3 of whatever per 1 unit. So in our case, it's $3 per square foot. It could be $3 per foot. It could be $3 per volume per cubic feet. So that's how this works. So let's get out of here because these are pretty obvious to make. You can just assign many materials and numeric values, and I have many different kinds right here. Let's go into the cost analysis, and I'll show you how they work because they're really cool. So this is the cost analysis for floor area, and you can already assume that it is our variable, our material column times the area. And so how did I get this? I'll make it from scratch. Firstly, at the top here, I chose the formula type, and we have different kinds of custom columns. So I basically just use choices and formulas for most of what I do. And there's different columns here that you guys can look at for certain nuanced purposes. So what is the expression? Well, I can just type in any letter, and I have my variables list. So basically, the first variable should be the materials. And because I created a custom column for it, it's automatically in the list. So all of my custom columns have become variables. You can even use the cost analysis columns, and you can basically create formulas within formulas. That can be a little bit complex, and not everybody needs to do that. But if you need to, you can use your own custom or cost analysis columns as variables. So here's the material one. I'm just going to double click on it. Space, the star symbol above the number 8 is for multiplication, space again, and then I'll just type in A so I can get area, and there it is. Just so you guys know, let me show you the other variables here. We have some constants that are quite useful and some calculus functions down here. So if you guys know some complex math and you need to do some complex costs, you can do it all through here. So let's just do area. We're done. I changed my format to currency. So that's why I kept referring to it as 3 units per 1 unit or whatever. It's a little bit hard to say it that way, but you can just change that to currency and say it simply. And then you can, of course, choose different currencies from all around the world down here. And I've chosen 2 decimal places to represent the cents. Now, this option down here is very important, include in totals. I recommend that everybody turns that on. That way you can automatically see your totals, and I'll show you guys that right now, actually. So what I'll do is I'm going to make my markups list a little bit bigger, and let me see. Yep, there we go. So I have that concrete area that I made. It's this one right here, and I have a few others as well. So because they have that same subject line down here of exterior, I can essentially total all of them very easily because I'm sorting by subject in this column. You can see that because there's an arrow facing up next to it. If I click down, now I'm sorting in descending order, and now I'm doing it in ascending order. So we can see here that if we scroll to the right, we can see this number that's kind of a little bit brighter and a little bit whiter right up here at the top. And it's not associated with any markup. It's associated with the subject, which means that we automatically have our totals done for us. So here our total areas between these 3 are about 1,000 something square feet, and so on and so forth. And so you can see that all the totals are already being done because I'm including all of the cost analysis in totals. So here are all these totals here for basically, I believe all of these are concrete. This is just a length tool that I used with wood with a client. So that one you can disregard, and we can change the subject line for that one so that we can organize it better. So that's how we can improve our cost analysis and make sure that everything here is cleaned up. So now you guys know how that works. Totals are really, really nice and convenient. Now let's go back to our custom columns. I want to show you guys one more custom column before we move on to the next spiel, because I know that I've been going a little bit slow with this presentation. So I just want to make sure I cover as much information as I can. So let's look at the cost analysis for wall area. like I mentioned earlier, there is our wall area variable. So all I have to do is just type in any letter. Sometimes the variable list doesn't pop up, so just delete and then press another letter again, and that'll make it pop up. And so if I scroll down here, here's wall area. Now I could do the depth times the length, but that's not necessary. I just have wall area here, so I double click on it, and it's in brackets, which means that it's a combination of multiple variables. So that's already quite convenient for us. The rest of the formula is the same concept, so you guys can understand how that works. And I was working with a civil engineering company, and we created some materials for them, including some materials for different pipes. So if you guys need to deal with pipes, this is a good example right here. And so as a result, we can calculate the cost for ductile iron and steel very easily. And the formulas for that are simply the material. So this one just is a long name for the material, but it's just one variable list multiplied by the length. Very simple stuff. Now, what if I wanted to calculate the amount of pipe that I need? The amount of pipes. So let's say that a segment of pipe had a certain length or distance. What I could do is I could essentially create a material list, and I would make sure that I have that ready. And then here, I would change my formula. So the formula here would essentially be the length and then divided by the material, I believe, if that's the case. I need to check in another sheet to confirm that, but essentially you'll divide, and all you need to do is confirm that if you go back to our materials list here for pipes, that the number here is not the cost per 1 foot, but instead this number would be the size of a pipe. So if the length of a pipe is usually of a pipe segment, let's say that it was 2 feet. So then you would change this number to 2 here, and then your cost analysis, if you reversed it for pipe length, would work out quite nicely. So you just have to do that length divided by the amount. And that's it. So that's how you can do some reverse cost analysis, and you can calculate your quantities at the same time. All right, great. So that's basically cost analysis in a nutshell. So let's see what is next. Yep, we automatically quantified our takeoffs. We did some cost analysis and subjects. Good, good, good. Let's create some summary reports and make some hyperlinked ones as well. So we can do so by clicking on this button right here in our markups list. It looks like as if we're sending an image or something on our phones, like a text. So we can click on that. And we have 3 major options besides print. The CSV is a basic Excel summary report, or a basic spreadsheet, excuse me, summary report, or a database file, as they call it. And this works in almost all versions of Excel and other spreadsheet programs. The XML summary works with newer versions of Excel, and the only difference is that it comes with alternating colors for the rows. I believe they use white and blue. And then there's drop-down menus that allow you to organize your markups or organize your quantities in Excel very easily. So it's convenient, but not necessary to use XML summary. PDF summary is what I want to show you all today, because the other ones you guys can explore on your own. It's very easy. And quantity link, there's videos on that, and I can discuss that another day with you all. You can always contact us if you want to learn more about quantity link in Excel. So PDF summary is right here. And so PDF summary has 2 major options. We have this checkbox that says append and hyperlink to current PDF. If it's checked on, you're adding pages to your PDF set that become a table of contents, so to speak. Now, if we don't do this, then we're going to have a separate PDF set. So our report will be its own PDF or its own group of PDFs and with many pages. And we can basically export it to a specific location on our computer. So mine's going to go to my desktop, and I can change that by clicking on this button right here. So if I turn on append and hyperlink, export is grayed out. So now we know the difference between the two, and that we're not making a separate file if we append and hyperlink. It becomes part of our original file. Then we have different options for our report. The major options to worry about here are the thumbnail and the style. So flow and table. I'll show you guys flow right now because it's much more common. And table basically looks like a grid line table, kind of like a legend or a Excel sheet, you could say. So you can kind of simulate Excel by using table if you wanted to. Anyway, I'll show you all flow. Let's go to filter and sort. And here I can choose between different subjects and different columns that I have. So I can turn certain columns on or off if I wanted to. So that's quite useful. But to actually turn our columns on or off, and not just the different information within the columns. So for example, under subject, I can just choose the architect's markups here. We can actually go to columns here and literally turn columns off very quickly. So if I don't need to see color, for example, that can go off, and many other different options. I'll keep color on this time just to show you all. And I have too many columns on because the report's going to be very heavy, but that's okay. I'll show you guys how it looks anyway. So everything is now ready. I can click OK. And now Review is going to process all the markups on the sheets that I specified. At the top of that dialog, I could choose whether I was using all the sheets or just one sheet in the file itself, or I could do multiple files all at once. I can make summary reports for more than one PDF set. So it's very, very easy. So this report's nearly done, and we're going to see it apply to our thumbnails list. We're going to see new pages. I originally have 6 pages. So here's the first page of our report, and we can go to our thumbnails list to see all of them. So let's scroll up a little bit. So here is page 6 of my PDF set, and page 7 is the first page of this report. So let's go to a random page here, and let's see if I can figure out where a markup is located on which sheet, because I don't remember where all of them are located. So if I zoom in on this office right here, I can see all the information that was on before. So this is quite useful. And in this flow style, it just basically lists itself off. So the less information is sometimes better. That way you can have more concise reports and you can fit more markups on your page. So because I have so many columns turned on, I can only fit about 3 markups per page. So where is Office 241? Well, I do have the page label here, so that kind of gives it away if I had the proper page number for that. But all I have to do really is just mouse over the icon right here for Office 241, and I can just click on it. It takes me back to page 1, and it centers the Office 241 markup right in front of me. So that's great. So now I know where it is. If I zoom out, I know where it is in relation to all the other markups. And that's how you can use a hyperlink summary report as a table of contents. So I'll demonstrate it one more time. If I go to this random page here, I don't really remember where this markup is. I didn't make this one, I think. And there it is. Actually, I did make this one for ceiling paint. That's right. But I didn't remember where it was. I promise. You can trust me. All right. So that's how we can use those. Hyperlink summary reports are really, really nice. While we're here in thumbnails, I'll just show you guys something that might be obvious to you all, but I'll just show you just in case. If I want to get rid of many pages all at once, I can just select the first one, scroll down, and then hold the Shift key, then click on the last one. So Shift always comes first, and then you click. And now I can right click. And I have many different kinds of options here. And one option that I want to show you all after I delete the summary report is how do we renumber our pages very quickly? I actually learned this with a client very recently. So what I could do is I can click on this labels drop down here, and I have 2 options. I have page label and I have page scale. If I don't need to see the scale of my drawing underneath every single page, I can just uncheck that, and it just shows my page labels. Then I could create page labels, which allows me to use existing text and kind of use that as a placeholder. So it works with vector data text and it scans the text, and you can do that if you want. I'm not going to show it today because it'll take too long. But what's more important, something very quick and easy, is you can go to thumbnails and you can go to reset all page labels. It's going to give you a little warning to make sure that this is what you want to do. I'm going to say yes. And now all my pages are just numbered very simply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very easy. So that's a lot simpler than having the actual page names underneath the page. So in that case, I can just save and I'm done. And basically, that's a really convenient way of doing that. If I was to extract these pages, they still maintain their individual page names. So I haven't really deleted that name off of these pages, for example. All right, awesome. We are nearing question time, but we have about 7 minutes left. So let me see if there's anything else that I've missed. Captures, that'll be a perfect way to end it off. Perfect. So I already have one capture on my screen, and I can easily see it because this icon is right here. It gets a little bit smaller as you zoom in on it. So a lot of icons in Review do that, like the note tool. So it's a little inconvenient, but that's okay, because when we're next to a markup, we can see it right down here. So if I mouse over this, then, it looks like it's not doing it this time. Let me click on a markup and then press the escape key and see if that works. It didn't do it this time. That's okay. Usually when you mouse over it, it gives you the preview of the name of the image. Anyway, so I just clicked on it, and this is an image that I've already assigned to this markup. How did I do it? Well, let me just click in a blank area to deselect that so it goes away. I'll use this markup as an example. I'm just going to right click on it. Capture is right here. If I have a camera connected to my computer, I can retrieve it immediately from the camera, but I'm just going to go from File. And let's see if I can find some images. I think this is perfect, these flyer assets. Let's do our logo, DDS's logo. Perfect. So now we have that capture icon down here, so we can click on it. When we do, we can see the image, and now we have a lot of options. So the first option is, let's start from the right, we can delete it, which is not really what we want to do this time. Then we have this button down here. This looks just like the button to create summary reports. So now we can see correlations between different buttons in the program that look exactly the same as each other because they have similar functions. I can export the current photo, or if I had more than one photo associated with this markup, I can export them all. So this is a great way to quickly save photos on your computer. So what you can do is you can assign a lot of photos to your markups and your measurements, give the PDF to somebody and tell them all the photos are there. If you need to actually, take the photos and retrieve them, just click on the capture and export it. You're done. So that's a great way to send people different files that are associated with your PDFs instead of attaching them individually to an email, for example. Then if I had more than one photo, I can use these arrows and cycle between them. So I just have one of one right here. And we have this option here, which allows me to just find another photo. So I can assign more than one. So I'll just do that one. Now I have 2 of 2. Looks like that one isn't really meant to be displayed properly like that. So that believe it's a thumbnail icon. So that's why it looks black like that. Let me just try this. Oh yeah, look at this, introducing review 2019. That's a few years old, but there you go. That's a better example. So, and here I can just get rid of this one right here. And when you click on the garbage can icon, it only deletes one photo at a time, whichever one that you're moused over. And the last button here is the most exciting one because you might get a little bit of a doppelganger double vision right now. It actually tries to activate your webcam. Oh, I see what's happening now. So what happened now is that review just kind of bugged out and it didn't crash or anything. If I click in a blank area, it should work. No. So what happened is that my camera is turned on Zoom and review tried to access my webcam in the program and it's not able to. I've never done this before. And as a result, I think that I have frozen the program. Isn't that convenient? So this is perfect. What a great way to end off. I'm just going to force quit the program. I just right clicked and closed it. If it doesn't work, I'll just go to my task manager and close it. That is really funny. Now I know you can only have your webcam open in one program at a time. So yeah, I demonstrated this when I was doing my tutorial on this and it worked perfectly. It just shows me on the screen right here in the center. So it looks like closing the program typically isn't going to work. So I'm just going to go to my task manager and I'm going to force quit it and then I'll open it up again so I can answer everybody's questions. While I'm doing that, I will glance over and I see that one person has typed in chat. So if you have any questions about anything, doesn't have to be on quantity takeoffs, but that's our focus for today.
I think that this is great timing on behalf of the program.
Right, it's amazing. I mean,
so hey, if you all have any questions, please use the chat feature. This is the right time for you guys to put your questions out there, and I know that there are questions. So while Ari reopens it, there we go. Look at that.
There we go. I just closed out a review and now I'm going to open that up. So yes, let me check in chat. Let me see what questions we've got. Yes, so nothing in yet. Let me see if we have some questions that were sent to us previously. Let me quickly see what I can do. Oh yes, this is a great example, by the way. This is part of the training today or part of our presentation. So look at this. Because I force quit review, it's got a recovery feature. So usually if you have a power outage or if the program freezes on you, for example, this is a great example of how that works. So I'm just going to click on this and I could recover my changes, but I don't really need to. I could click OK here. I think I will actually. Why not? And it's now going to open up my PDF and it should be good to go. Good. And look at that. It even remembered the captures that I created. I didn't save my drawing either. So that is very, very nice. That recovery feature really, really came in use that time. All right, good. Let's see. Oh, it looks like we got a question. So any use in civil takeoffs for cut and fill of soil? Interesting. I am not familiar with what that even means, but I did work for a civil engineering company, so I can make some guesses. So the cut and the fill of soil, I'm assuming the fill would obviously be the volume of the soil. When it comes to the cut, I don't know what that refers to. I think that there are some uses for that. Let's see. So I would assume that you would use an area tool or a volume tool for that. So the cut is a remove or add. So removing or adding from whatever part of that soil fill. Yeah, you could do something like that. What you would do is you could either create two markups. One of them would be the cut and the other would be the fill itself. And you would simply do a formula in which you would subtract one from the other. So as long as you organize them properly, then you could do it. So what I would do is, let's say I would have this area here. Let's say that I was going to cut into it from the right side, just a little bit into here. And I would want this to be the same height. So ideally, I would want to stretch this down a little bit and stuff like that. Let me turn on snap to markup so that I can actually snap these markups to each other. This is a great example of where snap to markup is very useful. So then I can take this, I can take these grips here and snap them. It doesn't want to snap to the intersection, but that's okay. And then I would snap this one and let's see. Yeah, I think instead of trying to modify an area tool, it's better if we make one from scratch like this. And with snap to markup turned on, I can snap it perfectly. So here, let's say that this is our cut. I'm just going to hold shift and drag that this way. So I would go to my markups list and I would make a formula for this. Firstly, I would make a material for it. So I would make one material that would be called the fill, and then the other material would be called the cut. And then in the formula, we would basically, if I just use one of these formulas as an example, let's just use that one. I would just do the material multiply or minus. You know what? I would actually make two material columns, one for fill, one for cut, and therefore we could subtract each of them from each other. So let's say this one would be called fill minus the cut, and then you would get your answer. I think that would be what you're looking for, right, Brian? That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. But if you ever wanted to actually confirm that and work on that with me, you can always contact us and let me know, and I can work with you for about half an hour or so, no problem. And if you ever wanted to schedule training with me, you can always call and let me know, and I'd love to train you. All right, great. That was an excellent question. Let's see. So while we're waiting for any more questions to come in, I think I had some questions that were sent via email to me. So let me see if I can pick those up. That way I can hopefully answer somebody's question here. Let's see what I can find. Okay. Oh, yes. Here, I see an interesting question. Oh, yeah, this is one that's a general question that I may as well answer now. Can you install Bluebeam on more than one computer? That is a very common question. The answer is yes, but you can't register the same computer or more than one computer with the same serial number and product key if you have one seat assigned to your license. So how it works is your View gives you a serial number and a product key when you purchase it. Then let's say that you wanted to purchase 5 seats of Review Standard. That means that you can register that same serial number and that same product key on 5 different computers. So if you have that many seats, and let's say that you got 2 seats, one for your computer at work and one for your computer at home, then you have no problem. You can just register both computers. That's easy. If you're just getting one copy of the program for yourself, but you want to use it on more than one device, then all you have to do, I'll show you in review how easy it is. This is the way to get around the system, you could say, is you go to the review dropdown and you click on unregister right here. And so if you haven't registered the program, this word will actually read as register. So all you have to do is click on that, and it remembers the previous serial number and product key that you used in the program recently. So you don't ever have to type in that long, very hard to remember product key ever again. So that's how that works. And once you do it once per device, just simply unregister one, register the other, you're good to go. You can still bring in your profiles and your tools to both of them. Something that I'll show you guys now, because I haven't seen any other questions, is we can go to our tool chest here and click on the gear wheel here, and we can export our tools. So it's really, really easy to export tools, and you can send them to yourself in an email, put them on a USB drive. It's very, very convenient. All right, let me see if any other pre-populated questions came in. Carlos made a good point. Don't be shy, guys. You can ask me any question you want. There's no stupid questions ever, I promise. Let's see if there's anything else that I found. Oh, here's an interesting one. Can I use visual search to turn lines into measurements? So a client asked me this one a little while back. That's a really good question. And sadly, the answer is no. So visual search, I think I showed you guys this last week, but it's this awesome thing. You can find it using the magnifying glass here. And after you use it, I'm going to quickly use it just to demonstrate how quickly you can use it without explaining too much about how it works. It's a little sneak preview for what we've already covered. I just made a rectangle around what I wanted to search. I'm going to click on search. My sensitivity is set lower because there's different lines on top of the other sinks in the drawing, so I'm not too worried about picking up on those. I want to make sure that we pick up on the sink itself. Those lines are not a big deal. And then after I select them all, I can click on this lightning bolt. That's called check options. So sadly, I can't convert them into a length tool if they were lengths. That would be really nice. And usually it's hard to use visual search for lines. So instead, I could apply that count measurement to them. So here's that option right here. And hyperlink is here along with highlight as well. And highlight's my favorite because it automatically allows you to quantify everything in your markups list. So if I do this, for example, and then I open up my markups list, all of my sinks have become markups. And because they have that same subject of highlight initially, which I can change very quickly, then they're automatically in the same category. And I can just change their subject to sink. I can change the comments area. I can double click in here and type sink 1, for example. And now I can start organizing all these markups. So I thought that would be a cool thing to show you guys. Kind of has to do with quantity takeoffs. It's pretty much related to it. Let me get rid of these and see if there's any other questions before we finish off. I'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Let's see. So here's an interesting one. Let's see. Ah, yes, this is a great one. Oh my God, it's so important for quantity takeoffs. This is such an important thing. Sometimes when you measure a PDF, you'll see a blue screen and your measurements aren't accurate. How do you fix it? So what happens is that layouts and viewports are detected from programs like AutoCAD, Revit, and other CAD and BIM programs. And so if we go to our measuring panel, we have viewports down here. So it's very important to understand how these viewports work, because if that dialog pops up, you'll see this dialog that'll pop up when you open up a file that has viewports from CAD or BIM, and it'll say, you're opening a file with untitled viewports. These may affect calibration and measurements. Do you want to delete them? The answer is yes, and check off the box that says do this always, and that way they'll always be deleted. So if I activate a measuring tool, for example, such as the length tool, you'll see that I have this new blue box in the upper right of my screen. So this is a viewport that I created. You can use these when it comes to your measurements to organize which measurements have different scales and which ones don't. So the overall scale of the drawing is 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, but this viewport is 1 or 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. So if I draw a measurement here on the main part of the drawing, it'll use the drawing scale. But if I move this measurement inside of a viewport, the number changes to match the scale. So as a result, that's why measurements are not variable when you have that big blue screen. And it's basically a huge viewport that's taking up the entire screen. And so the viewport overrides the page scale always. So that's why your calibrations won't work. Your measurements might work if the viewport happens to be the proper scale. And usually it is. But I recommend always getting rid of those untitled viewports. They're really unnecessary. All right, I think that was pretty good at the end. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. And thank you all very much for attending. I really, really appreciate it. You can always check out our blog. We have a lot of tutorials on everything that I've covered today and more. So you guys can go to that link right there, and you'll see that, you know, we have a little thing that I wrote, a little video tutorial, and it's all on our YouTube channel. So like, comment, and subscribe, as they say. And we provide Bluebeam review training, like I mentioned, so you can always contact us. We have customized training. It's any day, any time that is convenient for you and me. And we can meet for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. And that's it. And you can always email us at info@ddscad.com if you have any further questions, if you wanted to just ask a question, or if you have a problem with the program. And perfect, that's it. Oh, Brian, you're welcome. Thank you. Very
Ari,
nice to have you.
one more time and slower, that email address.
Yes, it is info@ddscad.com.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much. You're all going to be getting a link to next week's session. So make sure you check your inbox for that. Hey, we've got room. So if you know people that would benefit from this event, please go ahead and share an invitation with them. Let them know what's going on. We would love to have them. We always have room for more. Thank you very much to the team from DDS. Thank you to Ari. Thank you to Brian Wesner. And thank you to the Education Committee for putting this together. I hope you all have a great afternoon. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you all very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.